Hello everybody, my name is Kara, and today I'm here to quickly go over my 2020 reading goals, kind of check in, see how I did, and talk a little bit about some things I plan to do in 2021 regarding my reading and channel. When I went back and watched my video, there were more things I talked about than I remembered, but there weren't a lot of like strict, I have to do this many books, or I have to do like this specific thing or read this specific book, etc., which is good. And I kind of decided, like real quick before we get into this, I kind of decided like midway through the year, you know, like the pandemic was in full force, and I think a lot of us were kind of reevaluating pressure that we put on ourselves for things. And I looked at some of my reading goals, specifically the like book lists that I wanted to get to, and I made the conscious decision to not worry about it, like to not stress, and to basically like, I don't know, let go of that goal for this year, because if I got to those books, then great, but I wasn't going to stress myself out and add extra pressure to this thing that is supposed to be a fun hobby and not an extra stressor. And as for my other goals, what I tend to do when I make reading goals, the last few years I've done this, is I don't really do a check-in midway through the year. I kind of set my intentions at the beginning of the year and kind of see where I end up. I feel like that's a good way to kind of keep in mind some certain things I want to accomplish without, like, again, pressuring myself or stressing myself too much. But with that being said, I was still surprised at some of the things I had talked about in that video, so let's get into this. I was actually a little pleasantly surprised. There were more that I had at least accomplished some facet of than I had maybe guessed, so that's great. So the first goal I had for 2020 was to read 100 books. That was my Goodreads goal, and I did definitely hit that. I think at the time of filming this, let's see. Yes, at the time of filming this, I have read 201 books this year, which is really great. I'm really happy with that. I am actually filming this on New Year's Eve, so I might finish like one more book today if everything goes well. I don't normally film things like this early, but in this case I did. So I definitely accomplished that. I also wanted to continue with my physical TBR tracker, which I did. I kind of count this as a plus minus goal because I did continue with it, but I don't feel like I did as good a job using that data to actually like amend my book buying habits, I guess, and there's like multiple reasons for that. One thing is I've been pre-ordering a lot more books because, like all industries, the publishing industry has been hurt really hard by COVID. So this year I have been much more likely to pre-order a book than I normally would. Not that I'm pre-ordering or buying books that I'm not interested in or that I normally wouldn't want to read, but I just feel like this year, if there's a book I'm excited about and I'm pretty confident that I'm going to enjoy it, I am much more likely to pre-order that book this year than just like waiting to buy it later or to get it from a library or something. So that's one reason. I also have continued with my reading journal. That wasn't so much a goal, it's just something I wanted to use throughout the year. And I did really enjoy that one. I already have one that I've ordered for 2021. I have really enjoyed using that. I'll actually link the Etsy shop down below where I got mine. I also wanted to get my TBR maybe shelf under 50 books, which I definitely did not do. I think at the time of filming this, I'm up to like 65 books again, which again, like that was actually one of the goals I had remembered during the year, and I just decided not to stress about it. At some point I do want to get that number down. That's something I want to pay more attention to in the future. But again, I don't mind having that shelf. I think it's a useful shelf. I just want to kind of get that number lower. But this year just wasn't going to happen, I guess. I also wanted to read books that I borrowed that were not from the library. And I actually did really well with this one. I read some of the Rick Riordan Presents books. I read Beartown by Frederick Backman, and those were a couple of the ones that I specifically mentioned. So yeah, I didn't have like a huge number in mind for that one, but I did, I think, do pretty well with that goal. And then my retelling bingo list, I did not complete. This is one of those lists where I knew halfway through the year, I'm like, I don't want to put this pressure on myself, so I didn't. So I haven't completed that one, but I think most, if not all, of the books on that list are still ones I'm very excited about, so I do intend to get to those at some point. And likewise with the Reading Women Challenge, I actually got much closer on this one. I think there were only a few books that I didn't end up getting to by the end of this year, 2020, so I'm feeling okay about that one. And again, those were just lists where I'm like, decided not to actually like stress about accomplishing those throughout the year. Like I didn't want to force myself to read things that I wasn't in the mood for. And again, most or all of the books on that list I still want to get to, so like no worries about just getting to them later. I also wanted to mood read more, which I counted this as a miss for my goals because even though I did a little bit throughout the year, I didn't do it a lot. I don't think I'm very good at reminding myself I can mood read, that's something I enjoy doing and I should allow myself to do that. So that's definitely something I want to do more in 2021. I also mentioned I don't want to share every single book that I plan to get to in TBR videos. And I kind of count this as like a mixed results one because I have, like, near the later part of the year, I did kind of start amending how I was doing my TBRs, which I did enjoy. So yeah, I kind of did okay with that. Like, I just wanted to, again, put less pressure on myself because I have this weird thing where if I talk about the fact that I want to read a book, I feel like I need to read that book, or like I feel like an obligation to read that book, which is silly because it's me putting that obligation on myself. But anyway, and then I also wanted to continue doing book hauls, and I specifically mentioned an idea that I was borrowing from my friend Kelly from Cozy Reader Kelly about donating at least $1 for every book that I buy in a month to a particular charity, and I would choose a different charity each month. And this one I did really well on half of it and not so well on the other part. I did continue to donate to different charities throughout the year, but I didn't do great at keeping up with book hauls. Sometimes I just got behind because I was filming other things, and sometimes it just didn't feel appropriate to me to be posting a book haul given things that were going on in the world, like with the Black Lives Matter protests and COVID and the Philippines and just everything related to that, which I don't judge people who did post those during those times. I just think for me, I wasn't really in the headspace of wanting to film that kind of thing, so I didn't really do that. But again, I did keep up with the donation part, which I think is the more important part. But I'm a little bummed I didn't do a little bit better job of like staying accountable by actually showing you guys the books that I had picked up, and that is something I think I want to do more of in 2021. I don't want to be super strict with like I have to do a haul every month, or I consider that a failed goal, but I do like sharing what books I picked up. I think that they can be fun and helpful for people, and I also think like it's a good opportunity to talk about the individual charities. Like I would not have like taken this particular idea from my friend Kelly if she hadn't shared that in her book hauls, you know? So I do think there is a benefit to this, and I would like to continue doing that. I also wanted to continue some of the video series I had started, and this is another kind of plus minus goal. I have quite a few of those, you'll notice. I did do another of my pairing books with artwork, which I love doing those. I have another one actually waiting to be edited that's pre-filmed from quite a while ago, but I didn't do as great with this one. Like I definitely want to continue doing more of those series video ideas that are more creative and that I really enjoy. So again, pushing that into 2021. I wanted to do fewer time-sensitive videos, and I don't think I did very well with this. Primarily I was thinking of things like TBRs that had to go up first before a certain time for them to really like kind of make sense. And I did do a lot of TBRs and kind of similar videos last year, so which is not a problem necessarily, except that the reason I wanted to maybe do fewer of those or to feel less constrained by those is because I wanted to post other things, and I don't think I did that. Like it would have been fine if I posted a lot of TBRs and also other content, but I do think there were times when having to film or post that time-sensitive video meant that other things I wanted to work on or was working on got kind of pushed back. So yeah, not that there's anything wrong with TBRs, just that I think it kind of led my videos to be a little more constrained than I wanted them to be. I said I wanted to do more casual videos, which I'm gonna count this as a win. I did some reading check-ins, and like again, that's something I really love doing. I do plan to do more currently reading videos in 2021, so hopefully you guys enjoy those as well. I wanted to catch up on tags. Plus and minus, I did do several tags. I had completely forgotten I was planning to like do tags in pairs to kind of like cut down on that list. Until the end of the year I finally remembered I was going to do that, so again, kind of a mixed result there, but I do want to continue catching up on more tags. And then finally, the last goal is one that is not a fail because it just wasn't applicable. I mentioned that I wanted to go to BookNet Fest. Obviously BookNet Fest in 2020 did not happen. I think it was the responsible thing to do to cancel it. I'm actually very grateful for all of the book and reading festivals canceling their events, in some cases very early. I think that was the ethical thing to do. I'm really proud of them for doing that. Like I know that Y'all West was supposed to happen right around the time when the pandemic was like still getting more serious, but like the widespread self-isolation orders hadn't gone into effect yet, so there was a question of if they were going to try and go through with it. And I'm just really proud that they canceled it. I know that was really hard on a lot of authors and vendors and just participants. Like I know that was a bummer for a lot of us, but I think it was the responsible thing to do, and like I said, I'm really proud of the community for recognizing that. So anyway, that one I obviously didn't count as a failed goal because that wasn't a thing this year. Okay, so I intended that to be a lot quicker than it was, but that was kind of a rundown of my 2020 goals and how I did with them. Like I said, I at least made partial progress on more of them than I thought, so that's great. But as we head now into the 2021 goals, I have a lot fewer and I have a lot more open ones, and like basically the theme for my reading and channel goals in 2021 is to give myself permission to do things that I already am excited about and that I already want to do. And I did kind of mention that for last year's goals as well, but I'm just really leaning into that for this next year. Yeah, these are all things that I'm excited about and not so much things that I want to give myself that extra push to accomplish, you know? Because I'm the kind of person where I am not very good at, for one thing, making adjustments to goals. The fact that I was able to give myself a break partway through this year on some of the stricter reading lists was actually a significant accomplishment for me, I think, this year. But like, I'm not somebody who, like I said, is good at amending goals or kind of easing up on myself. And I'm also not good about almost like the self-care aspects of reading or other hobbies. Like, I'm really not good at doing things without putting pressure on myself. So I figure with the checklist aspect of my personality, one way to combat that is to actually make a list of goals, but they're all going to be things that I am just excited about doing anyway. So this is like my permission to myself to make my reading less stressful and more about what I enjoy. Okay, first goal is, again, I want to read 100 books. That is going to be my Goodreads goal. I'm not stressed about that. I think that's a number that I can comfortably hit and that I would be happy with hitting. Again, I will probably read more than that, but that's where I'm setting my goal. My next goal is I want to mood read. Like, I want to mood read a lot. And I think what I'm gonna do, and I can reevaluate this if I need to, but I think for 2021, I don't think I'm gonna do any TBR videos. Unless they're for projects that I am like co-hosting or like creating or things like that. Like, obviously those I will participate in by doing TBRs, but otherwise I don't think I'm going to do those, which is obviously going to be very different. I obviously do a lot of TBRs on this channel, and I think for 2020 it was really important for me to do that. Like, I think the fact that I participated in so many readathons and I had so many set reading plans or semi-set reading plans, I think was actually very beneficial, because reading was a really important thing that got me through parts of 2020, and I think by having that structure, I think it kept me reading and it kept me taking care of myself in that way, and it also helped me pick what to read. So I do think that was really great that I did that this year, and I don't regret doing that at all. But I'm gonna do kind of an experiment in 2021 and see how that goes, like see if I can handle just being a mood reader for a while. And instead what I'm going to do, because I definitely still want to support great readathons that are happening and that I enjoy, so what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to switch over to doing kind of currently reading updates. Maybe I will do those around the beginning of the month or maybe near the middle of the month, I haven't decided. And I'm also going to highlight particular readathons that are happening that month. Now, it's not going to be an extensive list, but basically ones that I would normally participate in, or ones that I kind of plan to participate in and just not like announce when I'm going to read for them. I'm just going to talk about a few of those. So it's going to still, you guys are still going to be hearing about readathons that are going on. I just won't be committing myself to a strict list of books that I want to read for those. And a lot of these readathons are I'm gonna, for example, Latinx-a-thon and Latinx Book Bingo, I love participating in those every year. I'm definitely going to participate in 2021. I'm going to try and complete the challenges and everything. I'm going to read Latinx authored books throughout the year, but particularly focusing on Latinx Heritage Month. So I'm still going to do that. I'm just not going to like kind of announce what I plan to read for each of those, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's a big change. No TBRs is obviously a big change, and part of the reason I'm nervous about this is because they are consistently some of my most popular videos, which is something I didn't think I cared about as much as I did, but it turns out I do care. So that's kind of, I don't know, that's a little stressful. I'm a little nervous about that, but I think I'm gonna do it anyway, and I'm actually really excited about it. Again, I'm a big fan of TBRs and readathons, and I'm still going to participate in a bunch next year, I'm sure. But I'm just gonna change the way that I put pressure on myself regarding those. And my next goal is I want to read more books I think I love. So obviously when I pick up books, I'm hoping I enjoy them. But what I really want to do next year is stop putting off books I think could be favorites for me. And there's a few reasons I do that. One is I think I'm nervous that I'm not gonna like it and I'm gonna be disappointed, so I kind of put that off. Another reason is I have some books on my bookshelves that I want to read and I plan to read, but I'm not as confident I'm going to love them. Like ones that could go either way. And I sometimes worry that if I only read the books I'm really excited about, then those books that I am more tentative about are just going to languish on my shelves. But I'm trying to tell myself that won't be a problem either, because if I'm reading what I love, it won't be as much of a, I don't know, of a drag or like of a commitment to also sprinkle in some books I'm less sure about. And then the third reason, and the reason that I'm most frustrated with myself about, is I I'm worried that if I read a bunch of favorites in a row or like close to a row, I'm worried it'll make me a less credible reviewer. And again, this is something that I wish didn't worry me, but it kind of does. I know there's always a lot of discussion about book ratings and like how that works in the book reviewing community, and you know, critical reading versus reading for enjoyment, which I do both. I don't think you have to be one or the other, and I am a critical reviewer. I do read for enjoyment, and I also think like in the spectrum of book reviewing, I probably rate a little more strictly. Like I think I'm more on the strict side of rating and reviewing, at least compared to people that I have seen, which is not a positive or negative thing. I just think that's where I fall in that spectrum. But even with all that, there's a little part of me that's like, are people not going to take my reviews as seriously if I have, let's say, a much higher average rating for the books I read next year? And I'm going to try really hard not to care about that, because I think also at the end of the day, like, people are either going to trust your reviews or they're not. And I don't want to not read things I think I'll enjoy because I'm worried about the possibility that somebody won't take me as seriously as a reviewer. Like, there are always going to be people who, because you read a certain genre or age range, or because you enjoy certain things in books, who are going to think that you're not a real reader. And we can't like plan our reading around appeasing these people who may or may not even be watching our channel. So that's where I'm trying to kind of put my headspace with that one. So yeah, I want to read more books that I think I'll love in 2021. I also want to read more plays. I love reading plays. I'm a theater major and it's something I'm very passionate about, and I have like several of my favorite works, like ever, are plays, and I just don't read very many, and I think it's because one of the main reasons, at least, is they're short. And again, with the reading credibility aspect, I don't want people to think I'm trying to pad my numbers. Or, you know, I don't want my average page count to be much lower because I read a bunch of plays, but I'm just gonna try not to care about that because this is something I love that I haven't been doing for silly reasons. And I actually want to mention Ashley from Bookish Realm. Her 2021 reading goals were kind of the inspiration for some of these, like, giving myself permission to do things that I'm excited about, but I'm nervous about for silly reasons. She was really inspiring in that video. I'm going to link that down below. Please check that out. Her channel in general is wonderful. Yeah, and she mentioned reading children's picture books and how she hasn't been doing that as much because they're short. And she was saying how, like, that's silly because, for one thing, there are amazing works of fiction and art out there that are picture books, and to deny ourselves those because we're worried about what people might say is silly. And she was also just talking about, like, wanting to read for her, or wanting to use her channel for things that she's excited about and passionate about. So again, just check out that video. It's wonderful. I want to read more plays next year. I also want to not stress about reading audiobooks. If you guys have been watching my channel for a while, you probably know that I don't do well with audiobooks. There have been a few that I have really loved, and I don't want it to sound like I have never liked any that I've listened to, because I have. But the process of listening to audiobooks is very difficult for me. It stresses me out. It makes me feel kind of bad about myself that I am not good at them, or that it's really hard for me because of my, like, auditory processing and whatever is just not great. And I don't want to try and force myself to enjoy those anymore. Like, I'm not gonna put that pressure on myself. There are still a couple of audiobooks that I do plan to get to during the year, but this goal is about not trying to make myself listen to them or make myself enjoy them or make myself get into them the way that a lot of booktubers seem to be. Audiobooks just aren't for me, and I think it's great that they work for other people, but I think in my reading life, they're going to be used very sparingly, and that's okay. Another big goal I have for next year is focusing on my physical TBR. I really want to get that number down, and I think a lot of the other changes and goals that I'm making for 2021 will really help that, because if I'm reading things I'm excited about, I think I'm going to read more. So yeah, I anticipate that one hopefully going well, but that is something I want to focus on. I also want to reread more books because I love rereading. It is a really important part of my reading identity. I have loved rereading basically since I have loved reading, and I just don't do it very much anymore. And again, with this like pressure that we put on ourselves, I think that there's this feeling like we need to be reading new books a lot of the time. And I actually will say, like, for me, it's not so much I need to be reading new books, like, for the people watching my content. It's more that I know I have a lot of unread books and I feel guilty if I'm not reading those. But also, I'm somebody who, like, reads quite a few books, like at the same time. I'm definitely a multi-reader, and if I even have like one reread going most of the time next year, that's not going to take away that much reading time from reading new books. So I don't think I need to worry about that, and I think there's a lot of important benefits to rereading books. And it's also, this is like reading self-care. I love rereads. I have favorite books that I have not read recently, some favorites that I have never reread and that I'm really excited to. So I'm just really excited about this. And I'm gonna link, Marinez did a video on rereading where I think she said a lot of wonderful things. She's a fellow lover of rereads, so I'm going to link that down below because it's just a great video and I love Marinez and everyone should follow her. But it's also relevant for what I'm talking about. Yeah, I want to read things I enjoy next year, and that includes rereading things that I love. So I'm really excited about that. And then the last goal I have on this list here is more channel related, and that is to film my creative ideas earlier. Because I do like mix in some creative video ideas, I think, at least I hope they are, that I really love doing. And I also am a big fan of the like staple BookTube content. Like wrap-ups are my favorite videos to watch, and I think they're kind of like the heart and soul of BookTube. Like, because if you're like the most basic function of our community, I think, or one of them, is to hear what people think about the books they read. And that's what I think wrap-ups are, and recent reads and that kind of video, and I think those are really important. So I actually don't mind that a lot of my content is based on that. I also do a lot of tags, which I treat as recommendations videos. So like, I think there is a really important place for the more like basic BookTube content. But I do have creative ideas that I have really enjoyed filming. Like I mentioned, my pairing books with art series. I've done some like song pairing videos that I really enjoyed. I did my Lucy Worsley book tag. So I have done some of those, but I want to film those earlier because I think the problem is that I put those off because I'm like, oh, well, I have to film this thing that's more time sensitive. And I always have something like that, you know, or almost always. So I just like never get around to filming the things that are more like creative or unusual. So basically what I just want to do is have a better balance of the more unusual content with the kind of standard content, which again, I love that standard content. And for me, the problem is not getting creative ideas. I have a ton of ideas. I just put off filming them, which I don't want to do. So working on filming those earlier is something I want to do next year as well. Okay, everybody, so that was kind of checking in with my 2020 reading goals, and talking about my 2021 reading goals, which are very, very different. And I'm really excited about it. I just had this like, I mean, there were several things that kind of pushed me over the edge to wanting to treat my goals this way. One of them I mentioned Ashley's video, which was great. And I was thinking about like, I don't know if I was watching somebody's video or if I was thinking maybe about during my birthday month, for the last couple years, I've like just read things that I wanted to read. And I was thinking about that and I'm like, you know, a lot of people, that's their whole year is just mood reading or just reading things that they're excited to read and they want to read right then. And that was kind of one of the realizations that made me like, I could do that too. So yeah, these are all goals that I am really, really excited about, and it's going to be kind of an experiment. Like obviously no TBRs is going to be, or almost no TBRs. Again, I'm going to be co-hosting some things. Like I definitely hope to do another round of middle grade magic next year, at least one round. So that's going to be great. Also leading ladies readathon. I'm going to continue to host past it classics, which I love doing. So there are still going to be some more structured reading plans in there, as well as a few arcs. So that's definitely still going to happen. But I want the vast majority of my reading to be me picking up what I feel like. And I'm really, really excited about that. So I feel like this was a much longer video than I intended, but I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you found this interesting. I hope that if you have been kind of trying to make up your mind about making goals that you're actually happy about, I hope that this maybe helped convince you. I'm just so excited for next year's reading. I know 2020 has been a really, really hard year for all of us, and I know that 2021 is not automatically going to fix everything that was hard about 2020, but I do think a new year, a fresh start is an exciting thing, and I think one of the ways that I can go into 2021 more positive and more excited is by making my reading more about what I'm excited about doing. So anyway, I think that is everything. I have rambled on long enough. Please let me know one reading goal for 2021 that you are really, really excited about. So not necessarily something that you're like, I should work on this, but something that you are really looking forward to doing. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!